December 20th, 2023. So nearing the winter solstice. And we had a nice Dhamma discussion at tea time about some of Longpa Buddhadasa's teachings and dependent origination. And find even now just talking about such things, recollecting such things, it's very, very helpful, very beneficial. And so we've been talking about the upcoming winter retreat, how there's going to be noble silence, but certainly Dhamma discussion is allowed, falls within that. It can be very, very useful to discuss Dhamma, reflect upon Dhamma, think about Dhamma, consider Dhamma. It's very useful. I've also been thinking that a lot of the Buddha's teachings, it's all about just our ordinary daily life, our ordinary daily experience. So sometimes we want to know about all these different stages of samadhi. We want to be able to talk with a Kruba Ajahn or a meditation master and get all the details about the jhanas and the immaterial jhanas and nirodha samapatti, cessation of perception and feeling, the Four Noble Paths, stream entry, once returning, non-returner, arhat, and the true nature of those, or should I be an arhat or a bodhisattva? What are arhats? What are bodhisattvas? What are Buddhas? So we want to know these extremely exalted things and what is nibbana. And then the Buddha's teachings are saying 4 postures: sitting, standing, walking, lying down. Be mindful of those postures. And the Buddha's saying the body, hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, and skin. Contemplate those things. Or the Buddha's saying, have goodwill. So these very basic things that we're coming back to. So it's always good to try to extract the mind from that intellectual fascination with these supreme states that, yes, it's good to know about these. Yes, it's good to be inspired by these things. And yes, there are Kruba Ajahns and meditation masters who've given testament to the fact that these things do exist, and they are knowable and attainable, realizable through the practice. And yet, the practice to know and attain and realize all these exalted things is hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, and skin, sitting, walking, standing, and lying down. Or wisely reflecting, I use alms food, not for fun, not for pleasure, not for fattening, not for beautification, only for the maintenance and nourishment of this body, for keeping it healthy, for helping with the holy life. Thinking thus, I will allay hunger without overeating, so I may continue to live blamelessly at ease. Or reflecting on the dwelling place, I use this dwelling just to protect myself from the weather, for living in seclusion. I use the robes, the clothes I wear, just to cover the body, not out of vanity, but just for protecting the body and for a sense of good conduct and composure, using medicinal requisites, not to be intoxicated with them, but just to allay feelings of discomfort and dis-ease. So 4 requisites, 4 postures. The 4 postures is a part of the mindfulness of the body and our development of sati sampajanya. So that's mindfulness and clear comprehension. And the 4 postures actually can be a very good recollection. If we think of each of these postures we engage in, we're either sitting, so we're sitting right now, and sometimes we stand, sometimes we walk, sometimes we lie down. So when we're working and going about our daily tasks, then we're walking much of the time. Sometimes we stop walking and then we're standing. So the body is disposed in these different postures. And Luang Por Chah would talk about how he read teachings about the 4 postures, and he would be kind of confused by them. when the Buddha said make the four postures even, at first he thought you're supposed to remain and perhaps developing mindfulness and clear comprehension in each of those four postures equal times of the day. So like he tried to sit for 2 hours, stand for 2 hours, walk for 2 hours, lie down for 2 hours, and then repeat that. And he said it was just unsustainable, so he had this insight that making the four postures even, it's more about making the mind even in all of those four postures. So it's easy to get into a state where we think, okay, I'm going to do a meditation retreat, or I'm going to go to puja and I'm going to be meditating, morning puja, evening puja, or I'm going to attend some sort of retreat and we're going to be doing such and such amount of meditation. And then there's the part that's apart from meditation, so there's just daily life, and then there's meditation, and those two things can become quite separate. But if we think about making the four postures even, and then we learn how to make the mind even and develop some equanimity, and then whether we're sitting, standing, walking, we come into the hall to sit, it's just a change of postures. It's not that the mind is going into some other state. So we walk into the hall and sit down. Even while walking into the hall, even coming through the door into the hall, we can recollect, okay, I'm walking through a door, and then walking to my seat. And when we walk to our meditation seat, we can already be developing a meditative mindset, even before we sit down. Chanting. Longpa Pasano, I remember him talking one time, saying that he was chanting at Wat Pah Pong a long time ago when he was a more junior monk, and actually realizing that the mind could become very, very peaceful while chanting, and that the chanting wasn't an obstruction to that. So we might think, well, okay, why do we have to do all this chanting? Why do we have to do this bowing? Why don't we just get straight to the meditation? And yet the chanting isn't apart from the meditation. So the purpose of the chanting is to recollect the Buddha's teachings, and it may occur that it gives rise to more and more faith. And then if we try to do the chanting well, it can be very satisfying and energizing and brightening for the mind, and then that really sets the stage or creates the conditions for more of a pleasant experience during the sitting meditation. So the walking isn't separate from meditation, standing isn't separate from meditation, chanting isn't separate from meditation, bowing isn't separate from meditation. So when we bow, we can actually be cultivating mindfulness and bowing not too fast and not too slow, and coming up all the way upright, so the back is upright and straight, and then with each bow, bowing down and touching our head to the floor and coming back up fully upright, and then bowing again. And sometimes the bows can become automatic or perfunctory, or we just do them very, very quickly without really coming up to a fully upright position. And so it's good to, the bowing is part of our cultivation of effort and mindfulness. And then just this very basic thing of just having a body composed of elements. The Buddha talks about the contemplation of the four elements, the earth element, water element, fire element, air or wind element, and that the body is comprised of these things. So this is very, very basic stuff. And that through contemplating these things and noticing where these things are in our bodies, for example, earth element, we can contemplate earth element, and we can contemplate it in various ways. So one is we can think of whatever in the body is solid, that is not to be thought of as my body, but just of earth element. And then not only is earth element solid, it also has weight, it has mass. And so there's a sense of heaviness, so we can feel the weight of the body, and we can feel the weight of different parts of the body. So for example, the head contains the brain. The brain can weigh, 3 pounds or something. And so that's weight. So that weighs the head down. And then the skeleton has weight, the flesh, the skin has weight to it. And then with water element, that would be the blood flowing through the body, coursing through the body, and different types of juices that are bubbling and gurgling away in the body. That has weight as well. So both the earth element and the water element are working together, and they both have weight to them. And so this body has mass, it has weight, and it's heavy. It's almost like we have to drag it around. It's a burden. And not to think of it that way in order to develop aversion to the body, but just to see it in its true nature, just to see that is its true nature, that is the way it is. It's not trying to convince ourselves that the body is made of these things. It's just trying to see with insight that's what it is made of. The Buddha is just pointing that out, helping us to look more closely, helping us to see. And that's all it is. So it's just extraordinarily ordinary. And yet, gaining insight into the body in this way can help the mind to stop suffering and help the mind to let go. So it's very interesting. It's kind of fascinating. So we have a lot of ideals and want to save the world and be kind of superheroes, and so while we're thinking about how to save the world from impending crises and global warming and how to stop all war and everything, these are really amazing, great ideals, how to create world peace. We're thinking and proliferating about how to do these things, these impossible tasks, how to stop all war, how to stop global warming, how to stop diseases, how to make everything better. And all the while, our digestion continues to gurgle away, our body continues to get older, and these very ordinary things just keep happening, and this is the direct experience. So it's not to say to not have these high-minded ideals and not try to solve at least some of the problems in the world, but also to look and see, while I'm thinking about these things, there's earth element, water element, fire element, air element, 4 postures. If I think, I have to check the news, that's walking. I have to walk to the computer, that's the posture of walking. Or is that walking to the computer to check the news, is that period while we're walking just in blindness, where we're just thinking about what's going on, what's happening, gotta check. Or are we able to be present and think, okay, I'm walking. So that's the establishing of mindfulness. And in the past, I've had kind of a mental block against the translation of mindfulness as remembering. I know some of the Kruba Ajahns would say that, mindfulness just means remembering. I thought, I have kind of a mental block to translating mindfulness in that way, translating the word sati in that way. But actually, more and more, I think it is actually remembering, because it's remembering ourselves and just remembering what we're doing, or we could think of it as recollecting. And that's why it goes with sampajanya. So sati is that remembering, recollecting, very deep remembering, deeply remembering what am I doing here, deeply remembering what's important right now, deeply remembering what can I do right now in order to cultivate the practice. And then the sampajanya is the full, rounded awareness. So there's that deeply remembering and then that establishing of awareness. Those things go together. One thing that's difficult that can come up sometimes also is we remember mistakes that we made. So this comes up for me fairly often. I'll be in the empty space of the meditation, different mistakes I've made will pop into my mind. And I'll feel either embarrassed or like I wish I could go back and change that somehow. And that's good to remember those things as well, but also to know that what's done is done, and the best we can do is to do better in the future. So it's important that even though we may remember mistakes that we've made, to not dwell on them, and also say we may have gotten criticized by somebody, or we may have criticized somebody and then thought that was a mistake, that wasn't quite true, and then feel regret for it. And so this feeling of regret, it's only natural when we have a conscience, when we're like a ordinary person with a conscience. Then when we say criticize somebody and it actually wasn't a true criticism, or we make some sort of mistake, or we slip up, we use wrong speech in some way, then it's natural to feel embarrassed or to feel a sense of regret. But also it's good to say, well, at least I can see that, and at least I feel that, and so to be forgiving with ourselves as well. And I know for myself, some of the most painful moments I've had in the practice are when I recollected that I hurt somebody, maybe with some sort of wrong speech, or I talked about somebody else and regretted talking negatively about someone to somebody else. And then I felt embarrassed, I felt ashamed. And those are natural things to feel when the heart is striving for goodness, striving for purity. Because we want the higher good. So that's where forgiveness, metta for ourselves, compassion for ourselves comes in. We know we're trying our best, and we can say to ourselves, I can do better, and then we do better. It's important to allow ourselves to begin again and to not be too condemning with ourselves. Just to say, okay, I didn't keep that aspiration. I'm going to try again. I'm going to try again. I'm going to begin again. It's so important. I think one of the really important factors of the practice is to learn how to fail, not to fail intentionally, but just to know that we're going to fail, and to learn how to fail and then pick ourselves back up again. The word for offense in the Vinaya is actually apati, literally means to fall over. And then when we clarify or purify that offense, the word that's used is to be picked back up. So when we confess an offense, and we're making an offense or making a transgression known to one of our fellows in the holy life, then literally they're helping to pick us back up. So we've fallen over, and then our friends help us to get back up. And so it's to be expected that as we learn how to walk in the practice, and as we learn how to make some forward progress with the peaceful mind and wholesome mind states, then we're going to fall over, and we're going to experience difficulties, we're going to experience obstructions. That's only natural, and nobody has it good all the time. So there's going to be good days and bad days, and it's interesting, it really goes up and down too. Sometimes I'll, from getting up in the morning to the end of the day, wow, everything just went really well today. Everything went really good. Everything was just, really fell into place. And then the very next day it'll be, oh, okay, it's going to be one of those days where just everything's difficult. Things don't go right. Nothing seems to fall into place. And those two types of days really have to exist with each other. It's always going to go back and forth like that. And in the practice, as we move forward, it's always going to be peaks and valleys. And we want to get to the next peak, we're going to have to go through the next valley. So, but as we do move forward, it's really just looking at these ordinary things. And it's good and fun to talk about really amazing states of samadhi and psychic powers and things like this, and that can be interesting. I know when I first came here, I really wanted to develop psychic powers and learn I wanted to be able to fly. I actually had this image in my mind of me flying, and then all my friends would have faith in Buddhism if they could see that and how amazing it was. And it's kind of funny to think back now that this kind of childish dreams, but yeah, it's more about these basic things, just 4 postures, just knowing when we're sitting, knowing the weight of the body, 4 elements, and lying down, we can also be meditating. We don't have to conk out right when we lie down. We can actually be mindful of our breath and then actually fall asleep while we're still putting a little bit of effort into the meditation. We might slacken that effort a bit and just allow the mind to rest and wander a little bit more. It's a way we bring our posture into being even in all, bring our practice in being even in all 4 postures. So if we're able to do that and we think about these ordinary things, about the postures and just the body and the parts that it's comprised of, and also thinking of how when we go about our life and the way we use our body and speech, we might end up making mistakes, and we're just working with these very basic things. And we might be able to get to a point where we can get up from our sitting meditation and the mind doesn't change so much. It isn't really shaken by then having to do some duties or do some cleaning or work in the kitchen or go about some tasks that we're doing in the workshop or fixing a kuti or sweeping or whatever we're doing throughout the day. And the mind doesn't really need to change that much because it's developed a sense of ease in the meditation. And we get up from the sitting meditation and the mind can still be at ease. And we don't really need to worry about protecting it. We don't really need to worry about protecting that sense of ease, because if we worry about protecting it, then we're already not at ease. So if we're worried about protecting our sense of ease that we gained in the sitting meditation, then we're already not at ease because there's worry there. But if we get to a state where there's no worries in the meditation, and we can actually see there's nothing really to worry about anytime. All we need to do is look at these ordinary things, look at these basic things. There's no worries. Another method is we can actually, if the mind is getting a bit agitated or feeling like worried, we can actually tell ourselves, don't worry, it's okay. So we can use the word okay. And this word okay has different meanings. It seems to have been, it's a word that we have in America. I don't know if it's an English word or not. I have to look up the origin of the word okay. But it's been adopted into many different languages, just this word okay. And in Thailand, they say okay as well. But in Thailand, the meaning is different than in America. So when we say okay in America, like, oh yeah, how are you doing? I'm okay. You're like, oh what, you're just okay? But in Thailand, okay, at least in the Isan, it means like super great. Like okay is like really great. And so it was kind of fun using the word okay in Thailand, telling myself it's okay, but then when I tell myself it's okay in Thailand, it's like, yeah, it's super great, super great. And they would say like, if you do that, oh Ajahn, if you do that, that's gonna be okay. So, Gamlangja, okay. Like they're like thumbs up, like that's really good. Just thought it's kind of interesting how the word okay changed so much and being incorporated into the Thai language. And then there was one time I heard somebody say, like, that's going to be okay mak, like very okay, meaning like even better than great. But we don't really need to tell ourselves that. We can just tell ourselves, at least we can say, it's okay right now, still breathing, still have this opportunity to practice and have enough to eat, everything's okay. Sometimes if the mind is spinning out or getting a bit agitated, like, okay, everything's okay. Just, and not it's gonna be okay, because that's off in the future, but just right now, okay. Breathing deeply, and everything's okay. Still breathing, still able to contemplate, still able to think about Dhamma. So we're looking forward to our winter retreat. The crew is starting to come together. It's really good to see. We're going to be doing some trainings with the crew to help look after the monastery, and we're all very grateful for this. And as time is moving on, Longpa Prasanno will be back on December 29th from his travels in Thailand and India. And then the new year is upon us, and it just seems like time is passing quickly. So I think that's probably enough for this evening, enough to think about, enough to consider, and I'll leave it there.